What is going on, everyone? Good evening and welcome to another episode of Grid Encore. I'm your host, Ben Schneider, joined, as always, by Brandon Crossland. Brandon, how are you doing tonight?
Doing all right, Ben, and good to see everyone here. Welcome back to another Motor Monday. Nothing in the cup. Felt like I had my fill of coffee for the day, so I thought it might be best to just forget it for the rest of the day.
Yeah, we've got a packed show for everybody here. Lots of racing going on at Bristol. By my count, 4 races, 5 different series on track this weekend. The wrap-up team took care of the Cup recap for you on yesterday's show. We've got Xfinity trucks and an ARCA East combo race for Crown of Champion this week as well, and we'll get into that, as well as a brief recap of the ARCA West race at Roseville in just a little bit. But before we do that, as always, I wanted to take a moment, first and foremost, to thank our Patreon investors, Colin, Michelle, Mark, Robin, David, and Matthew. Thank you so much for continuing to support what we do at this network. And if you like what you see tonight and want to consider joining them, you can follow the link to our Patreon in the description box below. Or if you'd rather make a one-time contribution to us instead, you can visit the Buy Me a Coffee link or tip us on YouTube through Super Chat as well. Now, the opening for tonight's show is going to be a little bit different. And I apologize if you are a first-time viewer here. We do these things called open segments sometimes where we don't really have a script. We just have a talking point and we just kind of speak what's on our mind here. And I want to take a moment in light of some of the things that have happened in the last really week or week and a half or so in this country and around the world, quite frankly. And again, I apologize if you're part of the crowd that would prefer us to stick to sports, as it were, keep politics out of sports. But to me, that's always been the biggest kind of an oxymoron phrase. I don't know if I'm using the technical definition of that right, but it's wishful thinking, really, at the end of the day, because there are certain things that come across your feed that I think transcend the importance of what we do here on a weekly basis. And that happened here this week. I see we've already got Denver here in the comment section, and I promise we will get to the racing here eventually. But you know, I was reminded this morning of listening to Mike Greenberg of ESPN, his radio show Greeny at the time a few years ago when Tom Brady and his then wife Giselle were getting divorced, and taking a moment on his radio show to just ask the question, is there no end to how nasty we have become on social media and how we have reacted to this news, and him talking about how he made the enormous catastrophic mistake of opening up social media and clicking on what was trending. And I will tell you that I will ask the same question here in light of particularly what happened Wednesday afternoon at Utah Valley University. And is there no end to how divided we have become in this country and how we have lost the complete ability to unite as a United States of America in the face of unspeakable tragedy? And I will tell you that I also made the colossal mistake of logging into Twitter, which is always a mistake, quite frankly. But logging in to Twitter on Wednesday afternoon and clicking on Charlie Kirk, who was trending for obvious reasons, and having the video come across my feed, the close-up video. And if you haven't seen the video yet, I implore you to do everything in your power to avoid it, because quite frankly, your soul was not meant to see the images that those of us that have seen the video saw. And I'm not a doctor by any means, but when I saw the images in the video, I pretty much knew it was a matter of when, not if, we got the confirmation that he had passed away. And there was just so much visceral, emotional reaction from so many people, just saying things along the lines of, you know, he had it coming, or how ironic is this, or, you know, openly celebrating what they had just seen. And listen, I don't care what you thought of the man's politics or what you thought of his beliefs. I will tell you, I did share his faith. I do share his faith. I'm not as outspoken about it as he was, and a lot of Christians would probably say it's an indictment of how I live out my faith in many respects, and maybe it is. I don't know, but that's a conversation for another time. But I did share his faith, and I certainly agreed with certain things that he had to say. Goodness knows I disagreed very strongly with other things that he had to say. But anybody focused on that in this moment is completely missing the point. That how did we get to, as a society, a place where we have found it acceptable to be so toxic and so hateful on social media that we are now embracing what I think a lot of people have termed assassination culture. There were people that were literally taking joy in celebrating the news that somebody had been murdered in cold blood simply for trying to have a conversation with somebody that disagreed with them. And he gave his ideas and perspective, and the college students were giving it right back to him. And that is how it's supposed to be. And I think we've forgotten that. It's very easy for us, especially behind anonymous burner accounts, and we see it in this sport all the time, people who have no filter and say whatever comes to their mind without giving it a second thought, and say stuff that I would at the very least hope that you wouldn't say to another person's face. And I just don't know how we get back to a point where we can rally around something that is so objectively, unspeakably tragic. And I just, again, it blows my mind. And I say on this show all the time, you know, whatever we're talking about, there are very few issues where I don't at least have an open mind and perspective to understand the other side, as strongly as I may feel in my beliefs and my opinions. If you have the polar opposite opinion, but you base your argument in what you believe in and, you know, stand behind evidence, I'll talk to you. We can have a conversation about that. I completely, and most of the time I will understand where you're coming from. But there are exceptions, and this is an exception here. If you are celebrating literal assassination, then I simply don't know how you got to that conclusion where that is okay, and I simply don't know how we have a conversation and move on from there. And I hope that other people who are smarter than me can come up with the answer to that, because we cannot continue as a society, as a country, as a world to have this mentality where, number one, this is how we handle our disagreements. We literally gun down the people that are saying things that we don't like to hear or that we disagree with, no matter how strongly those disagreements may be. But number two, that we see that, and we see such graphic political violence and come away with the conclusion that this is okay. And again, and I've seen this brought up as well. People talking about how this struck them differently, and how, you know, there have been plenty of things to speak up on. And this doesn't just apply to what happened at Utah Valley University on their campus on Wednesday. This applies to what happened just not even a couple of hours later at a high school in Colorado, yet another school shooting in this country. Just devastating. We had a scare right in our backyard here on the North Shore of Massachusetts at UMass Boston on Thursday, and thankfully the police did their investigation and found that it was a false alarm and everybody was safe. But it was quite scary for a couple of hours as those investigations were ongoing. People thought that they had heard shots fired. You know, and it's something that has become far too common in this country. I'm well aware of what is happening in Gaza right now, in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict that's been going on for years. The war in Russia and Ukraine, the images coming out of Ukraine are devastating. And you know, you can just stop me whenever you like. You know, that the world is full of no shortage of tragedy. And in a lot of ways, I think it feels like we have been in World War III since the turn of the century. And the ironic timing of all of this going down on September 10th, of course, Thursday, the next day was 9/11, the 24th anniversary of that terror attack. And the tweet that I saw that day that stood out to me the most was 9/12/2001 would be so unbelievably disappointed in 9/11 2025. And I mean, I wasn't really around. I was technically alive. I had just turned 2 years old when 9/11 happened. So I don't have the memories of that day, but from what people have told me and how people seem to remember that day, it was such a beautiful moment. As awful as that day was, the unity that we had as a United States of America in the days and weeks that immediately followed is something that I don't know if I've ever experienced in my adulthood. I don't know if we will ever experience again, because again, if tragedies like what I just listed off, and I don't mean to compare the scale of those tragedies and everything, they're all tragic and awful and horrible in their own rights. and we can just leave it at that.
Yeah.
But if these kinds of events cannot bring us together and stand up for what is right and what is wrong, and we can't even come to agreement on something like this, then we are a sicker nation than I even thought we were, and we are a sicker society than I even thought we were. And I think it just speaks to a continued theme that has come up again on this show before about how awful it is sometimes to be on social media, and how it leaves you wondering how we got to this point in the supposedly United States of America. And I'll just leave it at that. Brandon, I don't know if you have anything you want to follow up with here, but it was again, if you're a new viewer, I'm sorry. I know this is probably a little bit jarring to you, and I promise we'll get to the racing here in just a moment, but it was on my heart just to speak my mind tonight. I had no game plan, no notes, but it's been a tough week. And I think sometimes there are, like I said, certain things that just cause you to take a step back, and we can get passionate and fired up on this show about what we're talking about, but you see something like the events of the last, again, week and a half or so happen, and you just sit back and think, you know what, this really isn't important in the grand scheme of things, and it doesn't matter as much as all of those things.
Yeah, it needs to be addressed. I mean, it's something that encompassed everybody, no matter which way you lean, or if you don't lean at all. This affected you in the United States especially, but the world over. And I kept hearing it said, and I wholeheartedly agree. You want an example of demonic activity. You want that. You just look at someone who is able to, or people that are able to celebrate an assassination of somebody, regardless of the circumstances. That is one example of many of demonic activity on this world. It is scary. It's been defeated. It's not scary, but it's pretty blatant. Evil is very much showing who they are and where they are, and where they stand. I'm telling you, Jesus Christ is the way, the truth, and the life. And it's an attack on Jesus Christ. It's an attack on Christianity, and it's coming more and more to fruition as the years go on. But that's what I have to say there. It's just demonic activity, and just being able to openly celebrate the assassination of somebody. It's scary.
Yeah, and again, I want to make very clear, this is not just about what happened Wednesday. Like I said, I don't want to give the impression that, just because I haven't, spoken up in the past or reposted something to my Instagram story in the past about another tragedy that affected you in a certain way, that doesn't mean that I don't care or acknowledge the pain that you're feeling, or the pain that, the people affected are feeling. They're, like I said, they are all tragic in their own right. But just, I think the reason that this struck me differently is because I work on a college campus. I'm sitting in an office right now on a college campus, and the idea that in the country that I live in, we could be in a situation now where we are celebrating and, again, taking and delighting in the fact that somebody has been shot and killed, brutally murdered in cold blood, assassinated, for having a debate on a college campus. And this is not somebody that held political office, or, it was only 31 years old. And that's the other thing, just the humanity of it. I mean, you feel for his wife, you feel for his two very young children. I mean, it's just, it's horrific. And to know that that's happening in our, again, in the country in which we live.
The world is sick. It's sick. It's lost its true north.
Yeah. It's
been that way since the beginning of time.
Yeah. And again, to have the video circulate, I mean, again, it struck me, forgive me if it struck me a little bit differently. And that's all I can really say on that. Again, we could do the entire show on this if we wanted to, but we're already 15 minutes in, and we got a lot of racing to talk about, and we will get to that here in the next few minutes. But again, just I guess to wrap it up, just again, everybody, like I said earlier this year, take care of yourselves out there. And I was going to save this for my final thoughts, but I'll say it now. Just get off social media. Know that social media is not a representation of the real world. And I want to say I'm done with threads, by the way. Some of the stuff, I mean, I saw stuff on X, Twitter. I saw stuff on Facebook. I saw stuff on Blue Sky. I mean, it's everywhere. But threads is particularly the worst. And I even have the box that says, like, don't suggest political content or whatever. Like, keep that off my feed. I have that box checked off. And it does absolutely nothing, because my entire For You page on threads was just, again, people giving their thought pieces on the situation. And I finally said, I've had enough. I can't deal with that place anymore, at least until they put in better moderation in place. So if you do follow me on threads, I don't think very many of you do, because I never get any engagement there anyway, but I will still be active on Twitter and Instagram primarily. I'll at least continue to content share to Blue Sky, but Threads is out for me, at least for the foreseeable future. But I, again, encourage you all to just get off all of it and do what Brandon and I are doing right now. Do what we're going to do tonight. Have a conversation with somebody face to face. I think you might sometimes be surprised at the results when you actually make that effort to keep an open mind and try to understand where somebody's coming from.
And the ironic part of that, Ben, is I think Charlie had that interaction with so many people, and so many people discovered that after speaking to him face to face, that this is just a guy that, is not going to bash me for my opinion, but he's going to stand up for truth. He's going to stand up for what's right. But he, giving favor, giving more, what do you call it? Giving more, special care to those who oppose him the most, or disagree with him the most.
Yeah.
That's a lost art form in our society, and he was trying with every effort, minus the political affiliation. I'm not the biggest fan of that in my opinion, but regardless of the political affiliation, he was trying to return society to a sense of decency. For lack of a better term right now.
Yeah. And again, it's an awful place because, again, I certainly had my disagreements with a lot of things that he said, but I do think sometimes, and this is another problem with social media, and we do it too. We'll take a 30-second soundbite from one of our shows and we'll put it out there because we think it's the hottest take or the most interesting thing that we said. And the goal from that is to try to draw the viewer in to listen to the full hour, or however long we go. But very few times do people actually do that. They see the highlight and they either like it or they don't like it. They get mad or upset or whatever. They leave a comment and then they're on to the next thing. That's just the culture that we live in now. So again, I think what we do on this show, what Charlie Kirk and that student were doing the moment that he got shot, is what we need more of in this country. We need people, whether it's something as serious as politics or religion or morals or beliefs or whatever, or as fun-natured as sports or motor racing or whatever. We need people of disagreement to come together and have open dialogue and discussion and debate it, because that is how you sort out your differences. That is how you come together and try to open each other's minds to the other side where you're standing, not through literally taking somebody out.
Well, I'll give you a transition here. Aric Almirola and Christopher Bell thought it was so much of a week not to say something at their victory lane interview, or at least their start-finish interview. So there's your transition to the NASCAR Xfinity Series.
Yes. Well, let's start out here again. Congratulations to Christopher Bell. Congratulations to Joe Gibbs Racing. They've been on a roll here in the Cup Series, and now also as the Xfinity Series playoffs get started. And before we do that, I will catch up, since Denver's one of our regular series left us a couple of comments. There were floating rumors that Supercars Bend 500 last weekend, fans around the Bend, possibility of Connor Zilisch, a wild card entrant at Adelaide Grand Finale later this year as a GM counter. And then he continues, I think there are two culprits who are responsible for this possibility, SVG and Scott McLaughlin, given they are both from Penske Trackhouse, which is brilliant on their part. Yeah, I will confess, of course, people know I don't follow Supercars as closely, but I think those we've heard several rumors this year about NASCAR drivers maybe doing a one-off over there. And I think, like we said, the more crossover we can get in this sport, I think the better for every series that we cover here at the Grid Network. So certainly to have a talent like Connor Zilisch do that, I think would be certainly a lot of fun to watch. In the meantime, though, Connor Zilisch proved that he is human this week. Some pit strategy and the tire situation certainly came back up Saturday night in the Cup race, but had him settle for only 5th place. And I saw the tweet from Connor. He said, I have to remind myself that the fact that I am disappointed with 5th place is a very good thing. It means that we have very high standards for our team and what we're doing right now. And that is certainly the case, but it wasn't for lack of trying. He led a bunch of laps. He could have gone out and won yet another race here in this series, but it wasn't him. It was Aric Almirola. Not much unlike last year in the 20 car. Now he's in the 19, but that 19, once again, the conversation is going to come back up. He is leading that charge for that entries fight in the Owners' Championship. So, Brandon, I don't know off the top of my head, that what the schedule is going to look like for him, if he's going to be allowed to do the rest of these races here like he did last year, to be the driver that chases the Owners' Championship. Obviously, you can't have any cup drivers in that car the rest of the season. Front stretch announced at the start of the year he'd be doing 9 races. I think he's already up to 11 or 12, so they've already extended his part-time deal out a little bit. But could you see him maybe making a run very similar to the one he made last year and trying to chase this Owners' Championship with the 19 Gibbs team?
Absolutely, and he has just a good a chance as he did last year of securing that Owners' Championship. Aric Almirola still showing us that he's got the talent behind the wheel, and in the Xfinity Series, getting those opportunities still with the coach. And got to go back to the beginning of this year and remember the Phoenix finish, where it was some of our first controversy of the year of getting rough into the wall with a competitor there to take the win. But if he gets the rest of this season, that means we'll have to return to Phoenix for the championship race, as it will be the final one here for the foreseeable future. And so we'll get another chance to see Aric Almirola there in the desert. And also, hopefully, I would like to see him run the 19 here for the rest of the year. So at least we can have a consistent entry in that car and also a chance to win that Owners' Championship too.
Obviously, I can't help but think back to how Aric started his career, and obviously being a Joe Gibbs development driver. And I thought it was more fitting when he was chasing this with the number 20 car. Obviously, Brandon Jones full-time in that car this year. Kind of the all-star car this season, but it would be fitting nonetheless if that's something that team could achieve and be one of the biggest full-circle moments, certainly in my lifetime as a NASCAR fan, I would think. So I think it's very cool that Aric's got this opportunity. And like you said, Brandon, a little bit of controversy in terms of how he got the job done, but he did win at Phoenix in the spring, so he certainly knows how to get the job done there. And he came very close last year, was second in the Owners' Championship. Obviously, Justin Allgaier picking up the drivers and the owner's title for the number 7 junior motorsports team. But he made a run at it last year. I could certainly see him doing the same again this year.
I'll give you this. I wouldn't be upset if they moved the numbers around again and Brandon Jones came full circle and came back to the 19 and we put Aric Almirola in the 20 full time. You wouldn't have an all-star car there anymore, but I think he's got the stuff there to go for a championship.
Yeah, well, it does make you wonder, and I think a lot of it is part of Aric's decision as well. I think Aric is content with what kind of basis, and the family aspect of it, and not wanting the grind of a full-time schedule. But he's done this for the last 2 years now. If you win in the regular season, to be quite honest, what you do until we get to this time of year is not really nearly as relevant as what you do when you're running these 7 races anyway. So if he's going to run enough of the schedule anyway to the point where he's doing this, where he gets a win in the first however many races it is in Xfinity, I guess it's still 26, right? Because there's 7 race playoffs in 33. So if he gets one win in the first 26 races,
you might as well just. I mean, you can start and park for all you care. As long as you're full time, you'll be playoff eligible with that win. I guess assuming we don't have enough different winners, but I think we still have enough Cup drivers racing in the series that we haven't had to worry about that conversation too much in this series. But you might as well run full time.
if you're going to chase the Owners' Championship here anyway. So we'll see if that's something that Aric is interested in doing, but it does present another unique opportunity. I know the Owners' Championship does not get nearly as much attention usually in NASCAR as the Constructors' Championship does in Formula One, for example, but there are a lot of people at Joe Gibbs Racing that I'm sure can tell you that it's certainly on their minds right now as we look at that side of the playoff bracket as well. So we will keep an eye on that as the playoffs continue here, and we'll take you through the back end of the results here one more time. Obviously, on the driver's side of a championship, I think Connor Zilisch is still the favorite, but no driver mathematically or officially locked in. We expect Zilisch has a big enough gap that, heck, he might have that clinch by the end of the second stage of the next race, if we're being honest. But there is still certainly a lot to drive for and to play for the drivers that are in the Drivers' Championship playoffs in the Xfinity Series, and we'll keep our eye on that as that continues to develop. In the meantime, we move on now to the Truck Series race, and a very similar story. The driver that's been dominant all year, the overwhelming favorite for the championship, Corey Heim, didn't quite have what it took to get yet another win at Bristol this past week. Almost said weekend, but it was a Thursday night race with all the different racing series going on that we had here this weekend. Layne Riggs, a little bit of a surprise if you watched the start of the race, saw him get spun around. He was able to come back through the field, drive through the field, and take the win. So, Brandon, my question to you as we look at these Truck Series results here, obviously, Corey Heim has been almost as dominant as Connor Zilisch has been in the Xfinity Series here, what he's doing in trucks. If you had to pick the next best driver in the series, the driver that would have the strongest opportunity to compete with Corey Heim for that championship, the biggest threat to Corey Heim for that championship, is Layne Riggs the driver that comes to mind for you?
Maybe it wasn't earlier in the year, but as we get towards the end of it, and he's showing some consistency here from Pocono and Lucas Oil, most recently before Bristol. IRP. Why am I putting myself through punishment there? It's IRP, Lucas Oil. I think he's showing some late season consistency here, and he has another shot at Martinsville in the round of 8 to lock himself into the championship 4. And if you can set up yourself to be good in Avondale, then you've got a clear shot as Corey Heim does. So, yeah, why not? I think Charlotte Roval, I would go ahead and put Corey Heim as that's where he'll lock himself into the championship 4. Just a guess, but yeah, I think you got a strong argument there for Layne Riggs to be Corey Heim's the other one in the boxing ring with Corey Heim through the end of it. A third has not really been showing up much as of late. It's kind of been a pretty mixed bag, and of course, Caruth got a win, but besides that, it's been pretty mixed. You get the Hocevar win and Ankrum win. It was pretty mixed.
Yeah, I look at Ty Majeski here and kind of really a surprise, but the defending champion hasn't won yet this season. But he's on a stretch of top five finishes in the last 6 races here. Three top 5s in the last 4 for Daniel Hemrick, who has won this year at Martinsville as well. The McAnally Hokeman team, of course, very strong the last several years in this series. So I think you're going to have a strong championship 4 no matter who gets in here. I think Grant Empinger maybe has a chance. Maybe somebody. Again, you have to remember we have Talladega in the round of 8, so there is a possibility that somebody like, a Jake Garcia or Caden Honeycutt could steal one, so to speak, and lock themselves in the championship 4 that way. But I think if I had to guess right now, who you're looking at right now among the playoff drivers in the top 5, Ben Rhodes is right now the best of the rest in 11th in the standings. Layne Riggs, Corey Heim, Ty Majeski, Daniel Hemrick, in no particular order. That would be my prediction for who's going to make this championship 4 here. And again, Majeski proved it last year. Hemrick certainly proved it in the Xfinity Series in 2021 with how he won that championship. And Layne Riggs proved it this weekend. I think Corey Heim is not unbeatable, but again, based on the season that he's had, I think, and we've had this discussion on this show before as well, I think it will certainly be a shame if he cannot cap this season off with a championship. But he does at the same time, I think, have some very worthy challengers here, who finished in the top 5 this weekend, that are going to make it interesting when it comes time for Phoenix in just a couple of months here.
Oh, the eternal joke of Ben Rhodes always having a shot. Watch him. He's up there, like you said, just up there in the top 5, along with Daniel Hemrick and Tom Majeski with those 2 top fighters.
Yes, it will not be a continuation of the pattern every other year that he wins the championship, I guess 21 and 23. But he is still out there, and he's liable to, spoil the party at any given time, I guess you could say. And we certainly know Ben Rhodes knows how to party if his championship celebrations are any indication there as well. All right, we move on now to the race that kicked it all off this weekend, the final race in the ARCA Menards Series East, but it's a regular race on the schedule as well for the National ARCA Menards Series Tour. So that's why you see a very strong entry list count here, 34 cars taking to the track here in this combo race. And want to say congratulations to Brent Cruz on picking up another win here in his ARCA season. Tristan McKee almost backing up what he did at Watkins Glen as well. Very strong run in second. Brendan Queen, still your championship favorite in the National Tour with a strong third place finish as well. But at the same time, Brandon, we have to talk about the conclusion to the ARCA Menards Series East season for 2025. And it was Isaac Kitzmiller who ended up claiming the championship over Tyler Reif. He only gained 2 points on him. He needed to gain quite a bit more than that in order to snatch the championship away. Also, by the way, I want to give a shout out to Zachary Tinkle. I know it wasn't the day that he was hoping for, but came into the race in third place, I believe only 30 points back from the championship lead, if I recall correctly. And for a fast track racing team that is largely known these days as being a field filler and start and park on many occasions, for them to go full time in the East Series with Zachary and run the full races and get to the point where they had, albeit a long shot, a mathematical chance of a championship going into this weekend, I think is very, very special for Zachary and that team. And to finish third in the standings as well, great season for him, certainly worthy of a shining moment. And we'll get into more of those, obviously, at the end of the show. But just want to give him a shout out real quick. But the main battle was between Kitzmiller and Reif. Kitzmiller is the one who came out on top. But get this, Brandon. Isaac Kitzmiller wins the championship. No laps led all season. No top 3 finishes all season. Now, the caveat there is obviously this series is run very uniquely right now in that the entire back half of it is all combo races with the National ARCA Menards Series Tour. So you do have to compete against the Joe Gibbs Racing 18 team and what Brendan Queen is doing this year of a National Tour. That's the entire back half of the schedule. And some of those guys even show up to the East standalone races as well. So it presents a unique situation there where you have these guys who aren't full time, aren't competing for the championship, but there's almost always somebody in that car every week and preventing obviously the series regulars from pulling into victory lane themselves. What does Isaac Kitzmiller's season, as strong as it was and as deserving, take absolutely nothing away from him? We're so happy. I know Matthew Bro, our colleague here at the Grid Network especially, works very closely with that family and that team. But what's your reaction to a driver winning the championship in a series where he didn't lead a lap all year, I know we don't have podiums in ARCA or NASCAR necessarily, but didn't have a podium finish, so to speak, the entire season as well?
Well, I'm glad you mentioned the caveat that the back half of the season was with the combo races, so that does provide a lot of context for one that may not know. But it really just kind of shows a lack of, a lack of car count, I guess, and just showing kind of a weak, pretty good turnout, of course, with this combo race here, but Bristol and being the finale for the East, but it's just the weaker of the 3, I guess, when you look at ARCA West and the main ARCA, of course. ARCA East just showing the trouble that it has as far as, to crown your champion and have no wins, but no, not even a top 3, not even a lap led. Like that's something kind of flawed with the way that you're deciding your champion. And it hasn't happened that way every year, but this year kind of showing up wonky on the stat sheet.
Yeah, and again, it's not their fault by any means. Max Reeves, and again, this goes back to even in the non-combo races. You had Max Reeves out there, the 15-year-old kid in the Gibbs number 18 car, who I guess is going to be the driver to run that car for the next couple of years in this series. Won 3 of the 4 standalone races, and Brent Cruz won the one at Rockingham as well. And then you get to the combo races and you have to compete against even more of those guys. And it just creates this unique dynamic where you look at the front of the standings, and we saw it in the National ARCA Tour last year as well. We didn't have any full timers win races because it was just the 18 and 28 trading off victories, and a part timer from Venturini got one here or there, and then that was pretty much it. So again, it does present this interesting irony. The fact that NASCAR has acquired ARCA and has gone all in on the playoffs and winning, you're in Championship 4, and then you turn over to ARCA, and just the way the series is run right now, and the way the top teams are run right now with their rotations, and the way the East Series in particular is scheduled, it leads to a situation like this. So again, it is so cool for the Kitzmiller family, Isaac and Jason, his father, and Jason drives himself, as you see him there in 9th place as well. That team does a lot with, maybe not as much a lot with a little as the Brad Smiths or Andy Hillenbergs of the world, but they also, I don't think, have the equipment or the capabilities to put cars out on the track that Gibbs and Pinnacle or Venturini do.
So very legitimate championship.
Yes.
But I think the fear I might have is with NASCAR, of course, being the owner of it and looking over to their auxiliary properties and go, oh boy, this doesn't look too great on paper. Let's fix that with the playoffs. Take some of the last things that are pure and wholesome away.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how you do a playoff in a series that only has 8 races to begin with, but again, only 4 of those are standalone East Series races here. So I'll just go back to, and I think I've said it on this show before, but if East cannot recapture the identity that it once had, because it wasn't that long ago. You can go back just a decade to the mid 2010s. K&N East and West were, I think, equally as strong and had equally as unique identities that made those series unique. We don't really have that in East right now, and I would much rather. I'd rather the Five Flags and Rockinghams and Nashville's and Flat Rocks of the world, maybe not Flat Rock, but we need more tracks like Flat Rock, or going back to New Jersey Motorsports Park or New Smyrna Speedway, or tracks like that here on the East Coast. I mean, goodness knows there are plenty up here in New England that the modifieds are going to. Why couldn't they host some ARCA cars? We need that, or else I think the solution that I would like to see is I would rather see a 24 race ARCA calendar, and ARCA West can still continue to hit the tracks on the West Coast that they are able to visit, and have that series be its own separate thing. And that's continuation of the old Winston West series from decades gone by. But if East cannot reclaim that identity, then I think that is much rather what I would see, 24 big ARCA races rather than making 4 of those East standalones. And yeah, we'll say Dover, IRP, Iowa, and Bristol are combo races, and we'll award points and we'll keep an eye on the championship. But it's when so much of your schedule is combo races, so, full 50%, it does leave you kind of wondering in many ways, what's the point? So, and again, not to take away from the seasons that Isaac Kitzmiller and as well as Tyler Reif and Zachary Tinkle had, but it's more just looking at how can we kind of prop the series up to give it more of its own identity again. And I don't think making it half combo races is the way to do it. So
yeah,
we'll leave it there. But yeah, sorry, Brandon, if you want to respond to that real quick.
That's a fair point. I mean, if you want it to have its own identity again, maybe stop combining it with your national series, and it will. But again, that there's probably there's got to be a reason that they started combining to begin with. It was, I would assume, just hard to keep it going as a individual car, as far as car count, and also getting fans in the seats. Of course, Bristol is a you don't think about that too much because it's massive. But the other places that ARCA East goes to, just the ability to get people in the seats too, and also just the way that the top two cars you typically seem to dominate or lead every lap of the race, like we saw in ARCA West this weekend. I mean, it happens on that side too. There's a bunch of different factors that go into it.
Yeah, and again, I also want to say, and people have brought this up as well, I don't know that Bristol is the best track for ARCA in its current form, at least.
Sure.
Because of how high banked it is and how high the speeds are, and because of how great the speed differentials are between the top teams in this series and the teams on this page of the results here. And God bless the Brad Smiths and Alex Clubs and Club Racings and teams like that of the world, Wayne Peterson as well. I love those underdogs of this series and love their spirit and love that they continue to show up, week in and week out. But the reality is when you put those cars out there with Joe Gibbs Racing and Venturini Motorsports and Pinnacle Racing Group, I mean, it's just the closing rates on some of these lap cars is just something that I sometimes get a little nervous about because, and we've seen it sometimes, before, it can lead to some unpleasant things on the track and some dangerous situations on the track. And that's something that I think we should all be trying to avoid as much as possible. So again, I don't think it's impossible. I think there are a lot of tracks out there that, the East Series could go to and go back to. I mean, because it wasn't that long ago that they had a very nice, vibrant and thriving schedule. But I don't know that they currently have that here when you get to the summer months and you only have 4 races left and they're all combo races where you're kind of brushed to the side anyway. And I also want to just one final note before we move on. People can correct me in the chat or the comments if I'm wrong here, but I don't believe Fox Sports interviewed Isaac Kitzmiller. Again, think about that for just a second.
Right. The champion,
You crowned a champion live on FS1. How do you not take a few minutes? And it's not like you didn't have the airtime. You were airing a truck race right after that. And I think you just showed, I mean, I mentioned it in our grid chat, that video of Dale Jr. introducing the 1987 Winston 500, the condensed version of that, like a NASCAR Classics sort of half hour. I mean, the fact that they're using that for filler time instead of, I don't know, previewing the Truck Series race, doing a more in-depth recap of the ARCA East season. I know Fox doesn't do all the East races, but they do half the East races because half of them are just combo races. It felt like there was an opportunity to capitalize on some of those storylines. And I mean, when you're crowning a champion, for crying out loud, I mean, we're doing it right now. There are some weeks where, the East Series race is pretty simple. The Gibbs car leads every lap, and there's just not as much to talk about. But when you crown a champion, I feel like that's worthy of at least mentioning, and not that they didn't mention it, but at least when you're at the track, send your pit road reporters to talk to the guy, for crying out loud, for just a couple of minutes. That's all you have to do.
Send somebody.
Yeah. It's just very frustrating, but also, unfortunately, I think not surprising given the current state of Fox Sports' NASCAR coverage. So,
well, I mean, it kind of shows the lack of importance that they put on the East champion.
Yeah,
I mean,
there you go.
So, I mean, you got to have that recognition. Even if they are, no top 3 finishes or laps led.
And I'm glad you brought that up, Brandon, because think of the West schedule. What's the one combo race for West? It's the Spring Phoenix race. Where does West decide their champions? The Fall Phoenix race, right? So you West can still have their combo race and bring big ARCA in and have that race one time a year. I think that's fine, and it helps that it's part of championship weekend now. I assume it won't be next year. I don't imagine we're sending the West guys out to Homestead, Miami. Right? But it helps that you're already on championship weekend, and that's on everybody's mind. But when we crown our West champion, it is a West standalone race. And yes, a lot of the big ARCA guys show up because it's the last race of the year and it's a fairly big weekend. But that is the focus of that race. The focus of this race was part ARCA East finale, part, okay, here, what's going to happen throughout the rest of the ARCA season after the race tonight. And I don't love that. All right. Well, speaking of West, finally tonight, they were also in action this weekend. All three ARCA divisions on the track this weekend across two different races. Want to send a huge congratulations to Robbie Keneally on picking up the win. Very emotional win for him and his family and that team. Led every lap along the way, so well done to him, and hopefully will be the momentum boost that he needs for the rest of his season. In terms of the West Championship, Trevor Huddleston starting to think it might be his year here with just a few races to go, extending his points lead over Kyle Keller with a strong second place finish. And boy, is that going to be a feel-good story, assuming Trevor can hold on to that as well, because he's been on the rough end of some championship battles in the past. Of course, who can forget 2021 when he slowed up a lap early and he thought his teammate Jake Drew had won the championship, and it allowed Jesse Love to pick up that one spot and get that 1 point that he needed to win the title instead. So I'm sure this would be very feel-good redemption story for Trevor if he's able to indeed pull this off. But he took one step closer to that this weekend at Roseville, and congratulations to him on the strong second place finish as well. So that is going to do it for our race recaps here tonight, and we'll begin to close down the Encore show for this evening. Brandon, I think no shortage of things to choose from here across all the different series on track this weekend, but what was the one thing that stood out to you for your one shining moment?
I have to step aside from the track here for this weekend for obvious reasons, and I need to give it to Mrs. Erica Kirk, and for just her faith and her spirit right now in the midst of what the world would seem, or what the world would deem as panic and distress and turmoil. She is taking it with grace, and is going to continue her husband's legacy and her children as well, and just been praying for that family this week, and I know as the nation has as well, and just I got to give that to Erica Kirk today. One shining moment.
Thank you for that, Brandon. Absolutely. I will, like I hinted at, bring up the ARCA results here once again, and again, as flawed as I think the series management has been right now with the scheduling and just how certain things play out, the results are still what they are, and it is so cool. Like I said, that Zachary Tinkle had a mathematical chance of a championship this weekend. So again, even though it was a 31st place finish, unfortunate that the weekend didn't go how he wanted it to go. And again, I mean, it would have really taken a true miracle. He would have needed a top 3 or 4 finish, and for his 2 championship rivals to fall to the back very quickly. But a great season for him nonetheless. And I'd like to see him, to be quite honest, get an opportunity in slightly better equipment. No disrespect to Andy Hillenberg and Fast Track, but they're doing the best with what they can. But I think there's a lot of drivers in ARCA who you would like to see get that opportunity or get that one chance at some point in their careers, and I think Zachary is certainly one of them. So that is my one shining moment. Also want to give a shout out to a couple of members of the Earnhardt family back on track this weekend. So good to see Bobby Dale back again in the Rise Motorsports car. Again, certainly not the result that he would have liked in his return to the ARCA Menards Series, but good to see him back out there nonetheless, as well as Jeffrey Earnhardt. He's running a very limited schedule this year, trying to go for quality over quantity. Unfortunately, Bristol didn't quite work out for him, 27th place finish, but always good to see those guys back out on track as well. So that's going to do it for our show tonight. Thank you all so much for tuning in. And again, apologies if the start of the show was not what you were expecting. But like I said, sometimes certain things just really put life into perspective and, transcend what we do here on a weekly basis. But I hope you enjoyed our coverage of the Bristol weekend nonetheless. And if you really liked what you saw this evening, you can consider joining Colin, Shell, Mark, Robin, David, and Matthew and taking a few minutes afterwards to invest in our entire team here at the Grid Network through our Patreon page. You can also become a member through the Grid Network YouTube channel as well. Your support allows us to continue to expand our coverage and to get to the track on a more regular basis, and it is very much appreciated as we continue to wrap up the 2025 season. If you'd rather make a one-time contribution to us instead, you can visit the Buy Me a Coffee link in the description box below, or tip us on YouTube through Super Chat and Super Thanks. And the best thing you can do if you can't contribute financially or just want to show us some love on the socials, we are on all social media platforms, X/Twitter, Blue Sky, even Threads, despite what I said at the start of the show about that platform. Grid Network will still be sharing things over there. So whatever microblogging platform you are using these days, we are on all three of them, as well as Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Twitch, LinkedIn. Most importantly, subscribe to the YouTube channel. It really helps us out quite a lot. Now, looking ahead at our upcoming schedule, Grid tonight will be back in a little less than 48 hours time with Kobe Lambeth, Joshua Birch, and Matt White. Stay tuned for our continued new pre-race show format, as well as the NASCAR playoffs continue this upcoming weekend. Going to be actually in my backyard, I guess you could say. Not quite the backyard because it's not even the same state, but it's still close by, New Hampshire Motor Speedway.
Closest you're going to get.
Looking forward to that. Yeah, absolutely. New England race fans out there are going to have a good time this weekend. So stay tuned for Grid Live programming as always. And then Encore, we'll see you back here on a little more than a 167-hour break on Monday night. Brandon, any final thoughts before we sign off for the evening?
Yeah, Grid Live wrap-up. Have fun saying Mobile 1301 from New Hampshire Motor Speedway, because that's the I think like at the 11th hour, that's the title of the race for this weekend. Glad they could get that put together. And yeah, and also I agree with Ben. If this week has been taking you through the ringer, just get off social media. There's never a bad time to get off of social media. Stop watching Fox News, for goodness sakes. Stop watching any news. Just, if you're a frequenter of anything like that, just take a break. Take a break.
I will say I'm so grateful for social media in the aspect that it has brought us together. It has made it easier. As my editor-in-chief, Brock Beard, said on Wednesday, it has never been easier for us to engage in debate and join the conversation. It has also, unfortunately, weaponized a lot of us in terms of how we approach those conversations and the attitude we possess when we do so. And so I have always had a very love-hate relationship. I'm grateful, Brandon, that we were able to meet through that form of communication, and to Joe and Kobe for bringing me on board here. It's hard to believe it's almost been 5 years that I've been a part of this team. And with Brock as well. Brock and I would never have connected if it weren't for Twitter as well. So it can be used for good. But at the same time, I do think we all need to use it in moderation. Those of us that are chronically online, I think it can lead to some dangerous and unpleasant things. And so I would, again, like I said earlier tonight, get off social media, take a break, and get out into the real world, for lack of better terms, and have those conversations face to face, human being to human being. Because again, you might be kind of surprised a lot of times at what that leads to. For Brandon Crossland, I'm Ben Schneider. Thank you all so much for sticking with us. Hopefully a return to a more regular theme and format on next week's show. We'll see you next time. Have a great rest of your week, everybody.